Have you ever imagined a dinosaur walking through snow, braving freezing temperatures and endless darkness? Sounds like something out of a movie, right? But what if I told you it was real? Most people think dinosaurs only lived in tropical forests and hot, steamy jungles. But the truth is, some species actually survived in one of the harshest environments Earth has ever known, the polar regions. So how did they handle the cold? Did they have some kind of special adaptation? And here's the most surprising part. New discoveries suggest that some dinosaurs might have lived in these frozen lands all year round. That means they endured brutal winters, months without sunlight, and bone-chilling temperatures. Today, we're going to explore the evidence that shows how these dinosaurs defied the most extreme conditions on the planet. So get ready, because you're about to find out that the Arctic had its very own T-Rex too. A deadly predator that ruled these frozen lands millions of years ago, spreading fear wherever it went. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Huh? Stick around until the end, because what's coming next will blow your mind. When we think of dinosaurs, we usually picture hot tropical forests or vast open plains. But what if I told you that some dinosaurs lived in one of the most extreme places on Earth? That's right, the planet's polar regions, where today there's nothing but ice and freezing cold, were once home to dinosaurs millions of years ago. Back in the age of dinosaurs, the world looked very different from what we know today. The planet was warmer, and even the polar regions were covered in dense, life-filled forests. But that didn't mean it was easy to survive there. These areas endured long periods of total darkness, freezing temperatures, and extreme seasonal changes. So how did dinosaurs manage to survive in such a brutal environment? The plants that grew in those regions were just as unique. There were forests filled with conifers, giant ferns, and even some flowering plants. These forests formed the foundation for the herbivorous dinosaurs that lived there. But when winter came and snow covered the ground, finding food became a real struggle. Many of these dinosaurs had to adapt in order to make it through. What's even more fascinating is that scientists have discovered fossils of dinosaurs, and even trees, in these frozen landscapes. For instance, in Antarctica, fossilized trees have been uncovered, revealing what life was like there millions of years ago. These fossils tell the story of a world where nature fought to stay alive, even in the harshest conditions. Among the creatures that called this brutal environment home were dinosaurs with incredible adaptations. Each species had its own way of dealing with the cold, the darkness, and the constant scarcity of food. Some were fierce predators, others were small, fast-moving herbivores. But they all had one thing in common: the incredible ability to survive on the frozen edges of the planet. Now let's take a closer look at these creatures and find out what made them so special. The dinosaurs that roamed the polar regions were just as extraordinary as the harsh environment that surrounded them. Each species carried unique adaptations, shaped to survive in a world where cold and darkness were constant. Among these icy survivors, one truly stands out: the mighty cryolophosaurus, often nicknamed the Arctic T-Rex. This medium-sized predator wandered across Antarctica around 190 million years ago, back when the continent was still covered in vast forests and teeming with life. It could grow up to 23 feet long, but what really stood out was the distinctive crest on its head, a mysterious structure that may have been used for showing dominance or attracting mates. The most impressive part? Even surrounded by freezing temperatures, months of darkness, and rough terrain, this dinosaur didn't just survive, it thrived. But it wasn't just the big predators making an impact. Smaller herbivores played a vital role in this frozen ecosystem too. One standout example is Leelinosaura, a small dinosaur about 6.5 feet long. It had unusually large eyes, likely helping it see better during the dark winter months. Its long, flexible tail may have helped it balance while moving through the forest in search of food. Another key resident was Edmontosaurus, a massive herbivore known for its duckbill-shaped mouth. Could reach lengths of up to 40 feet and may have migrated in search of food. However, fossil evidence suggests that some Edmontosaurus populations stayed in the polar regions year-round, enduring the cold and surviving in surprisingly harsh conditions. Even the smaller dinosaurs like Hypsilophodon played crucial roles. Fast and clever, they likely avoided larger predators and knew how to find hidden sources of food in the dense polar forests. Together, these dinosaurs formed a balanced ecosystem, each species contributing to the survival of the whole. The diversity of life in such an extreme environment was remarkable. Predators and prey, large and small, all adapting and competing to stay alive. But living in the polar regions wasn't just about hunting or hiding. The biggest threat came from above, or rather, from the lack of it. Constant darkness was the most brutal challenge of all. How do you survive when the sun disappears for months? And that's exactly what we're about to find out. But before we dive into the next part, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, now's the perfect time. Your support helps us grow and keeps the dino content coming. Let's keep going. Living in polar regions was about more than just size or strength. There was one crucial factor that made everything more complicated: sunlight. For months at a time, these areas were plunged into near-total darkness. Without the sun to warm the land or light the way, dinosaurs had to develop incredible strategies to survive. Picture a group of Leelinosaura moving through the dense polar forests. Their large eyes worked like natural flashlights, helping them see even in the darkest nights. Scientists believe this adaptation was essential for finding food, like leaves and small sprouts hidden among the frozen plants. On top of that, their long, flexible tails helped them keep their balance while navigating uneven terrain full of obstacles. But life in the dark wasn't just a challenge for herbivores. Predators like cryolophosaurus also had to hunt in pitch-black conditions. Some experts believe these dinosaurs developed sharper senses, such as smell and hearing, to detect prey. Just like modern wolves that hunt in packs to overcome harsh environments, it's possible these predators used some form of teamwork, making them even more efficient hunters. However, surviving the extreme cold without sunlight wasn't only about chasing or escaping. Many dinosaurs may have adapted their behavior to conserve energy. Some could have entered periods of low activity, similar to modern animals that hibernate. It's even possible that certain species sought shelter in dense forests or caves to escape the freezing wind and relentless darkness. Another fascinating mystery lies in the fossilized trees found in ancient polar regions. These fossils show that the plants there grew in short cycles, making the most of the few months of summer light. Herbivorous dinosaurs like Edmontosaurus likely fed intensely during this time to store enough energy to get through the cold and darkness. Some may have migrated to find richer forests, but others probably stayed put, relying on fat reserves and sheer endurance to weather the storm. Now picture this: a silent polar forest blanketed in snow, a faint shimmer of starlight in the sky, and a cryolophosaurus lurking among the trees, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was a world where every sound and movement could mean the difference between life and death. Each species had its own survival playbook, and together, they turned these frozen regions into living, dynamic ecosystems. Surviving the polar wilderness took more than bravery. It demanded real, physical adaptations. And that brings us to one of the most debated questions in modern paleontology. How did these animals manage to stay warm in such unbelievably cold conditions? For decades, scientists have debated whether dinosaurs were cold-blooded like modern reptiles or warm-blooded like birds and mammals. And the truth is, the answer could completely change the way we see these creatures. Many pieces of evidence suggest that dinosaurs were not the slow and sluggish reptiles we once imagined. In fact, especially those that lived in polar regions may have been endothermic, meaning they could generate their own body heat, just like today's birds. That would explain how a Leelinosaurus stayed active during the darkest months of the year, even without relying on sunlight. Fossils found in polar zones support this idea. Bones with signs of rapid, continuous growth, something typical of warm-blooded animals, have been identified in several species. On top of that, many of these dinosaurs likely had short feathers covering their bodies, acting like a natural coat to help retain heat. Still, some researchers argue that the secret might have been a middle ground metabolism. Not fully warm-blooded, not completely cold-blooded either. This hybrid strategy would have given them a unique kind of flexibility to deal with the hostile environment. While Cryolophosaurus may have used its warm, agile body to hunt in the shadows, Herbivores like Edmontosaurus relied on thermal insulation and fat reserves to make it through the harshest months. These incredible adaptations reveal just how different polar dinosaurs were from their tropical relatives. And how do we know all this? It's not just guesswork, it's science. Every answer we have came from clues left behind in time, buried in ice, preserved for millions of years. Bones, footprints, even entire fossilized trees. And now, it's time to understand how those discoveries happened. Because it was the fossils, silent and patient, that told us the real story of these survivors of the ice. Let's start digging into that past right now. But first, if you're enjoying this journey through the frozen world of dinosaurs, hit that like button. It helps YouTube keep showing you content like this. Now let's keep going. For a long time, scientists believed that no dinosaur could have survived in the polar regions. After all, how could such massive creatures endure long winters, total darkness, and freezing temperatures? But everything changed when fossils started turning up in the most unexpected corners of the planet. One of the most remarkable discoveries happened in Antarctica in the 1990s, with the unearthing of cryolophosaurus, a crest-headed predator preserved beneath the ice of Earth's harshest continent. Its remarkably well-preserved bones offered undeniable proof that prehistoric life had once thrived even there, deep in the heart of the cold. And it wasn't alone. In Australia, fossils of Leelinosaura and Timimus revealed impressive cold weather adaptations. Leelinosaura, for example, had large eyes, perfect for low-light environments, and bones that showed continuous growth, even during the darkest times of the year. In Alaska, fossilized footprints and remains of Edmontosaurus and other hadrosaurs revealed that these herbivores lived in groups. Some migrated, others stayed in the frozen regions year-round, forming real caravans in search of food or safety from predators. It was more than survival, it was cooperation, and it wasn't just dinosaurs leaving behind clues. Fossils of ancient trees and plants from these regions revealed ecosystems unlike anything we know today. Fossilized trunks with growth rings tell the story of forests that blossomed during short summers and vanished again in the frozen silence of winter. Every fossil uncovered in these icy landscapes is like a puzzle piece lost in time. And together, they paint a portrait of a world that once seemed impossible. A world where life thrived beneath the ice. But one question still lingers. How exactly did these dinosaurs manage to eat in a place where almost nothing grew for most of the year? That's what we're about to find out. Living in the ice wasn't just a fight against the cold. It was a constant battle for energy. In an environment where the sun vanished for months and the ground froze solid down to the roots, even finding something to eat became a matter of life or death. During the Mesozoic era, polar forests were dense and vibrant, but only for a few months each year. Filled with tall conifers, giant ferns, and low-lying plants, they briefly flourished in the summer, only to disappear beneath snow and darkness during the winter. To survive there, every species had to reinvent itself. Herbivores like Leelinosaura, small and nimble, likely searched the frozen forest floor for dry leaves, roots, or even tree bark, much like modern moose do in cold woodlands. Its sharp beak was perfect for slicing through hidden vegetation, and many believe it stored body fat during the more abundant months, a built-in energy reserved to withstand scarcity. The giant Edmontosaurus, reaching up to 40 feet long, seemed to take a more collective approach. As previously mentioned, fossilized footprints revealed that they moved in organized herds, following established trails in search of food. Some migrated, while others stayed put through the winter, relying on stored energy and teamwork to endure the harshest months. And when the vegetation vanished, the predators suffered too. Cryolophosaurus, often nicknamed the T-Rex of Antarctica, had to adapt. In times of scarcity, hunting required patience and strategy. Could spend hours hidden among the trees, waiting for the right moment. Some scientists suggest it may have hunted in pairs, or even in small packs, like modern wolves, increasing its odds of capturing quick or well-defended prey. Smaller predators like Timimus may have relied on a different playbook: agility and smarts. Fast runners with a sharp sense of smell, They may have scavenged leftovers from bigger hunters or competed for whatever scraps were available in the frozen ecosystem. And cooperation wasn't limited to the carnivores. Among herbivores, group living was one of the most powerful tools for surviving cold and danger. Leelinosaura, for example, had eyes adapted to low light and likely lived in small bands, communicating with sounds and movements. Some believe they may have even shared shelters during frigid nights, huddling together for warmth like modern penguins in the South Pole. These quiet alliances, both between species and within groups, helped maintain a fragile ecological balance. While herbivores spread seeds and enriched the soil, predators kept populations in check, preserving the health of the forests. It was a brutal system, but one that worked. A game of survival where every move mattered. But even the most adapted, the most organized and resilient, weren't ready for what was coming next. The mass extinction that would wipe the dinosaurs off the face of the earth. They endured months of darkness, withstood brutal snowstorms, survived hunger and isolation. Polar dinosaurs were true masters of resilience, creatures shaped to face the extremes. But in the end, not even they could withstand the greatest catastrophe Earth has ever seen. Around 66 million years ago, a rock from space miles wide and traveling at unimaginable speed collided with Earth in what is now Mexico. The impact created the famous Chicxulub crater, and within hours the world began to die. The collision was so violent that it threw dust, ash, and gases into the atmosphere, forming a global veil that blocked sunlight. Plants stopped growing. The cycle of life collapsed. A true ecological blackout. And for polar dinosaurs already living on the edge, it was the final blow. They were used to surviving with little light and low temperatures, and they may have held out for a while. Some tried to migrate. Others sought shelter. Many, perhaps, fought until the very end. But this time, there was no next season. No summer. No future. The herbivores were the first to vanish, with nothing left to eat. And like dominoes, the predators soon followed. The strategies that had worked for millions of years were no longer enough. But not everything ended there. Many scientists believe that some of the polar dinosaurs' adaptations, like feathers, fast metabolisms, and social intelligence, may have been passed on, and that the survivors of this apocalypse were small, lightweight, and agile, the direct ancestors of the birds flying over our heads today. Yes, the birds we see now may carry in their bones, their DNA, and even their instincts, the legacy of those who once ruled the frozen edges of the planet. The story of polar dinosaurs is a powerful reminder that life is incredibly strong, but also incredibly fragile. They lived where few dared. They survived what seemed impossible. And even after disappearing, they left behind clues, fossils, and mysteries that still haunt and inspire us to this day. In the end, maybe the true legacy of the polar dinosaurs isn't just in the frozen fossils, but in the idea that even in the harshest corners of the world, life always finds a way to shine. And if you enjoyed this journey through the frozen past, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your fellow dino lovers, and tell us in the comments which part of the story surprised you the most. We'll see you in the next video. Until then,